I call to order the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting of September 11th, 2024. May I have a roll call, please?
Eric here.
Lynn here.
Michael here.
Nero here.
Rise. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Has everybody had a chance to look over tonight's agenda, and are there any issues or? No? May I have a motion, please, to accept?
I move that we accept the agenda presented to us.
For September 11th.
25th.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
25th, I'm looking at the wrong one.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, and has everybody read the minutes? Are there any additions or corrections? Anybody? May I have a motion, please?
I make a motion to approve the minutes of September 11th.
May I have a second?
I
I
second.
have to abstain, I wasn't here.
You can vote on it, you just can't make a motion.
Oh. Well, I'll second it.
He got there before. We're okay though, because he wasn't here either.
I was
So
here
it's
either.
set.
Yeah.
Motion by Michael, second by Eric, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Is there a declaration of conflicts of interest tonight on anything that is on the agenda?
No.
No. Is there anybody in the audience who has public comment on something that is not on tonight's agenda? No. Special presentations, we have none. Design review and land use public hearings, 996 Main Street, changes to approved plans. Scott?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So in the packet, you have a staff memo that outlines a little history for 996 Main Street. The applicant's representative, Michael Bucas, is here, and I think he'd do a much better job than I will of kind of running through what those changes to approved plans are. So the building was approved in 2021, and in I believe August or September, they came in for some changes to approved plans at that time as well. And then we didn't hear from them for a couple of years. It took a while to build that house. It is a really impressive house. It's turned out really well. We were called and for a requested final inspection on that. So as buildings are wrapping up, we usually do temporary certificate of occupancy inspections. That's usually when we look at things like, how's the landscaping coming along? Are they pretty much done with the outside of the building? Are there any changes? And in this case, I think we were asked to do a final inspection. At that time, this was about a month and a half ago, I guess, or 2 months ago, there were several changes to the exterior of the house, the placement of materials, the placement and design or configuration of some of the window packages. There were some changes to the rear yard. What was concerning to us at that time, because we were kind of remembering the original approval of this, there is a 30-foot live stream setback on that lot, which faces the river. So at that time, we were concerned with some changes to a patio area in the back and just wondering, without having a survey, if that patio encroached into the 30-foot setback. There was a hot tub that was not originally shown on the approved drawings that was now on site. Things like that. Typically minor changes to the exterior of a house, those are things that we come across pretty often when we do our final inspections. Things do change during the course of construction, materials changes, change owners by the owners. Those weren't a surprise. And I guess through the review of this, the applicant's representative, Tom Sullivan, who's building the project, and Michael responded quickly with an updated survey to show that the revised patio design did not encroach into the 30-foot setback. The hot tub itself does not encroach into the 30-foot setback. They took another look at impervious coverage on the lot as some of those things changed. Michael and I have also discussed whether this sand set paver patio actually does create more impervious surface. My interpretation And this is not the first time we've interpreted it this way. I think we did the same for the house across the street. It does not add impervious. That's up to you as a planning commission to make that call. So things like that. In summary, I'm kind of used to seeing these types of changes, not necessarily things with regard to landscaping and patios expanding and things like that. But in my mind, this is pretty typical between the start of a project and the end of a project, that we come across things that have not been approved and yet need to come back through and get approval. So that's why we're here. I don't think anything that was changed runs afoul of the code or the design guidelines. And like I said, the biggest issue in my mind was whether those improvements encroached into that 30-foot setback, and they do not. So that's all I have, and I think Michael's here to walk you through his explanation of how these things happened. And
I'm Michael Pukas, the owner's architect and representative. My address is P.O. Box 288, Gypsum, Colorado 81637. I think, Scott, you've done a great job summarizing the changes that were made. As far as changes to the building architecture, we simplified and made maybe more homogeneous the exterior siding material. We had a mix of horizontal and vertical wood siding before, from ground level to the roof, and now that has been changed so that the majority of the building is vertical wood siding from the ground to the roof, and some horizontal wood siding is highlighted at the chimney and stair tower at the entry area, and some of the stone base material around the front entry has been modified a little bit, but overall there is no change to the building footprint or building massing. The window configuration changed a little bit in that the original design had a header between the lower level windows and the upper windows, and that was at the ground level and the upper level bedrooms. That header was eliminated to make the glass bigger, and the great room on the ground level on the river side, we increased the amount of glass in the form of glass doors and windows on that lower level. As far as the patio goes, the original design had a deck, and then we came back and revised that to a patio on grade. And then we revised it a third time to be, again, a patio on grade, but lower to original grade. So there's one step that comes out of the great room down onto the patio on grade. The patio is made out of a bluestone paver that's set in a sand bed, and that does encroach into Eagle River Water and Sanitation's sewer easement, and it goes over their sewer line. We did present an application to them for that encroachment agreement that they have approved. That's been submitted to the town and it's included in your packet. The stipulations that they gave us were there could not be a concrete pad that the pavers were set in, and there could not be any sort of boulder retaining walls. Basically, they didn't want excess weight being put on top of the ground that may compromise their sewer line. So as far as impervious surface coverage goes, as Scott mentioned, we are planning on having the patio being treated as a permeable surface and not counted towards our impervious surface coverage. So that will allow us to have a driveway and parking area that is actually functional, and it will accommodate an emergency vehicle, a fire truck turning radius. Our civil engineer has told us that in his calculations from the street to where the staging area is, it's less than 150 feet, and therefore fire code does not require a turnaround, but we have provided it because our engineer did it, just to show that we can make that turnaround if it was ever necessary. And another factor I'll throw out that's maybe not necessarily to be considered for the review tonight, but the driveway easement for these three properties does extend onto lot 3. That was a more recent change from when these three properties were originally subdivided. So at some point next year, when the house on lot 1 is completed and that driveway is ready to be put in, the driveway design will have to be modified slightly to accommodate getting vehicles across lot 1, across lot 2, and onto lot 3. Scott has had a conversation with the owner of lot 3 yesterday, and I've been told that, Scott, you didn't have any issues there. I don't see any issues with designing a driveway that can accommodate getting vehicles onto that property, but it will require a civil engineer to get involved when we're ready to address that.
Right.
Otherwise, I'm happy to answer any questions.
I have one. You're speaking of the driveway and the turnaround being 150 feet, and you have a staging area for the fire truck. And you just mentioned 3 driveways. What's the space between driveway 1 and driveway 3? Will they all be using the same staging area? If need be.
Well, that's a good question. I'm not sure I can answer that. I don't know what thinking about how the driveway design could work. If a fire truck had to get down the driveway and there was, say, a fire at lot 3, they could drive down into lot 3, address that fire, and then back out by backing into the parking area at lot 2 and then driving out. That's one way it could work. In the turning radius analysis that was done, we only looked at accessing the house on lot 2. We haven't looked at how the turning radius is going to work if and when we have to access lot 3. But I'm anticipating that it could still work because there's going to be, we can do a number of things. We can make the driveway big enough. We can also include some type of parking pavers adjacent to the driveway, pavers that have grass growing in them. We can accommodate a turning radius if necessary, if we need more than backing into the driveway parking area at lot 2 for them to drive out.
Madam Chair, can I just add a little clarity to why we're even talking about this right now? The original subdivision of these 3 lots, that was a Tom Sullivan subdivision proposal that he had brought through. We required Tom at that time to submit civil engineering drawings showing the potential driveway just to prove that it would work. So Jeff Spinell, our town engineer, could review that. So at that time, there was the initial review of, turning radii and access for emergency vehicles. And it was determined that those 3 lots could be serviced by that one driveway. When Michael proposed or submitted drawings showing the new site plan, including the new patio, and we were having discussions with him about, does this count towards impervious, does it not? If it does, you're going to need to find some impervious area elsewhere. And that's when the configuration of this driveway to accommodate some more landscaping at the front of the lot, that's when the configuration changed. And I said, hey, now that that's changed, it looks like a sharper curve. Can you provide some turning radii so we know that a fire truck can still get to where it needs to, or an ambulance or whatever? I think we're in a position now that impervious coverage isn't as germane as I thought it was. If you agree with me that a sand set paver patio does not count towards impervious, you designed for the worst case scenario, basically, to show additional landscaping at the front and this reconfigured driveway. We have a turning radii analysis that shows that it still works. So I think both bases are covered.
Anybody else?
I have just a question. On those windows that the glass was more, are both those in the back of the building?
It's actually on all 4 sides.
Oh, all 4 sides.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
In the back, Daryl, I think there were some. Can you explain what the, I guess it'd be the east elevation was?
The east elevation originally had sliding doors that were 8 feet tall. And then there was a header between, about a 10-inch tall header between that 8-foot tall door and then windows above it. The new configuration in the middle has a door, a 3-panel sliding door that's about 11 foot 9 inches tall. And the doors on each side of it are 2-panel sliding doors that I think are, I can't recall off the top of my head if they're 8 feet or 10 feet tall. And then there are a transom window above that with no structural header in between that door and window. So there is more glass and a much bigger door in the middle.
And that's on the east.
That's on the east riverside.
Okay,
That's not visible from the street.
okay, okay.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Basically, change windows and it's probably a two-part question or a question for Scott or whatever, but, changing the windows and siding, all that stuff is definitely typical. I think stuff like that definitely happens. I think, I mean, I guess my question is, Scott, when you went down there to check it out, you were just concerned that the patio, you had no idea where the patio was, and the patio and the hot tub threw you off, and that's the change that made you ask Michael to clarify everything. Is that correct?
Not exactly.
I'm sorry.
It was everything.
Everything?
When we started our inspection on the south side of the residence, we take the plans, looking at the elevations.
Mhm.
Oh, that doesn't match. That doesn't match. That doesn't match. Go around the back side of the building, look at the architecture and the window packages, and same thing. So we went all the way around the building just looking at that. But as we were in the backyard, we were also looking at the site plan saying, this definitely doesn't match. I think there had been an updated, a change to approved plans as Michael referred to. The original plans were for a deck that came off. Then it did come in, get approval for a change to a at-grade patio that had some boulder walls, but they were, that patio was stopped short of the sewer line easement. And
Yeah, I
then-
saw that.
Yeah, so when we went out there, it was more of a rectangular shape instead of a trapezoid. So that was just a red flag for me and Madison that things don't look as they should. But it was everything, wasn't.
And then how, this is probably more for Scott, Michael, thank you. But how, in regards to that, in the future, I mean, obviously you're gonna look at all that stuff when you go out, when you go out to do that. And as well as a lot of that's tough to really see prior without, if you go out during a framing inspection, you look at it, you're like, well, maybe that window looks right, like,
Right.
how, what? Thank you, Michael. Well, I mean, what are our thoughts on, what would you have rather seen the process be if in your mind, moving forward, so it doesn't happen again, what would you have rather seen Michael do?
Michael, the owners, the builder, it's incumbent on the applicant to, as they're making changes, to come through a process. There may have been some miscommunication there. I don't know. That's the perfect world scenario. Is as they're making changes, they do this. They submit plans with clouded things showing what they're changing, and that's how it's supposed to work. And in a lot of ways, it does work that way. It also involves our building inspector, who is a wonderful, very talented guy that everyone, I think, likes working with. They have their way of doing things. They get a call for foundation inspection and framing inspection. Those are inspections that we're not on. He's the building inspector. He's looking at the framing. He's got an ILC showing the roof height and all those things. We don't really get involved until temporary certificate of occupancy inspections. So when he's getting the request from a property owner that, hey, these folks want to occupy the house, they're not quite done, but that's usually when we do our first inspection to see how the construction has turned out. maybe there's another step in there that we are going out and.
Well, the
check-
inspector, I know the inspector, the inspector's a good guy, he's out there
Yeah.
inspecting, make sure it's all built and doing what he needs to do.
Yep.
You know, I don't, you know, it's in his purview to measure up the windows, you know, but,
No,
you know, I think that, and like you said, if someone came in and said, hey, we're making these changes, and like, for example, when little things are approved, like signs and this and that, it's in the back of our packet, and we see it.
Yep.
And that's the regular process. So,
Yeah.
well, the good thing is Michael's here a lot. He knows, that, you know,
Yep.
we just get it better at it moving forward, I guess, now that we know what Scott wants.
I think there were a few cooks in the kitchen on this one that maybe all of this shouldn't fall on Michael's shoulders.
I'm not,
That's my understanding of the situation, but
I'm not blaming you.
Well, I get your sentiment, Michael, and your point, and I take on that this is we should have had this meeting prior to asking Scott and Madison to come out for final inspection, final CO inspection.
Yeah, I don't know if the timing, when you asked for the encroachment from the sewer district, whether that was relevant if changing the patio or not, but I think that everything has been addressed, that at this point that needed to be addressed, and that's all I got.
I have a little question more for Scott or Michael. Are we making it very hard for the individual? The process here,
making it hard as in,
making it more difficult,
Yeah.
that he's gotta come back for this, come back for that, or anything like that?
I'd love to hear everyone's thoughts on that. I think we do a really good job of working with people and making it as easy as possible to show us the changes. I'm always open to making things more streamlined. But
I think we're pretty good.
Michael, how do you feel on that? Are we making it very difficult to?
I think I've had this conversation with Scott a couple of times over the last several years, not only on this project, but other projects. I have wondered if there could be a process in place to review changes to approved. And I get that the changes on this project, the changes to approved are significant. And it is probably more than Scott and Madison want to take the responsibility on of reviewing and approving. But I do think that it's a big effort to go through a reapplication process. So this process for me tonight was as if I was making a new application. So I had to do a public notice and a public mailing, and all of that takes a significant amount of time.
Yeah.
I just wonder if there could be a more efficient process for reviewing changes to approved.
Or could
Okay.
there be a stage in between where if things are small enough, that doesn't have to be done? And you and Madison, I mean, if it was the patio and the hot tub, I would say yes. Some of the others maybe not, but there's somewhere in there that maybe you two could work with it. We're not talking variances here, we're just talking some minor changes.
so in this
And you
case,
would still have to come to them, but maybe not go through the whole application process.
I like to chime in on that one. I think that our process is pretty good. I think that you guys both, as far as changing, saying thumbs up on change direction of siding and put it in our packet. I think that process works. I think what your entire statement explaining our process and how we got here is clear, and if that was preferably done, we wouldn't be here. But this is, I don't have an issue. It's all resolved. So That's all I,
I will say, just maybe to wrap up your point, Daryl, we are continuing to work on Article 5. That's the article of the new code that we brought to you with the process for all these different things. We spent some time today talking about the definition of major and minor. We're going to keep working on those. We're going to bring it back to you. So we're going to have another bite at the apple to talk about what's the right comfort level that the Planning Commission has with that definition. What's a major change? What's a minor change? Is it increasing building square footage? And that's how it reads now. Anything that adds square footage or building footprint, but should that include changes to building height or changes to what? I'm just making stuff up, but we'll talk about that again. Relative to your point, is it the right process? Is it the right amount of review by staff, review by Planning Commission? So.
Right. It's going to be a process to look with. Don't want to overload you guys, but then on the same token, don't want to make it so cumbersome for
Right.
folks in town. So yeah, I know it's going to have to be something worked out.
Eric, do you have anything?
I just appreciate the oversight process so that we are knowledgeable about what's going on and so people just don't have the freedom to do what they want to do. And I guess my only concern was the set pavers, and if they're permeable and then it goes to the drainage, then that's pretty much the biggest thing that we have here, right?
Yeah, and through our process, we'll talk about that definition of impervious as we update the code. But in the recent past, I'd say the last couple of years, we've taken the approach on a couple different ones. I noticed, or I referenced across the street, they wanted to do an addition and do some things in their existing yard, and we looked at their sand set flagstone pavers as pervious because they literally let water percolate into the ground, right? That's the idea, is to regulate the amount of impervious or a concrete slab, which they're not doing. So I'd like to get some clarity on that as we continue to update the code so we don't have to have so much interpretation moving forward.
Because then you start going into calculations and how much is going through.
Yeah.
Shall we open for public comment? Is there anybody in the audience that has anything they'd like to say? Nobody? Is there anybody online?
I have one person online, but no raised hand.
With that, we'll close public comment. You have suggested.
I'd like to make a motion. I make a motion to approve the changes to approved plans at 996 Main Street because the changes comply with the requirements and standards of the town zoning regulations and design guidelines.
May I have a second?
I second.
Motion by Michael, second by Eric. May I have a roll call vote, please?
Eric, aye.
Lynn, aye.
Michael, aye.
Daryl, aye.
Thanks, Michael.
Thank you all, Michael.
Okay.
Next. We have 0013 Belden Way, new single-family residence. What's the staff? Madison.
So this is a 4-bedroom, roughly 3,200 square foot, single family home located at 13 Belden Way in Southtown Belden Place PUD zone district. Plans show a 3-story with a basement single family residence with a maximum building height measured via a weighted height calculation approved in the Belden Place PUD guide of 27 feet and 11 inches under the maximum allowable 28-foot limit within the Southtown Belden Place PUD zone district for single family units. Parking is adequate with 3 off-street spaces, one of which is provided within the garage and 2 at surface level in front of the garage. This proposal respects all setbacks, lot and impervious coverage limitations, and snow storage requirements. I did want to make a note that per the approved PUD guide, staircases are allowed to encroach into the side setback as long as it is not within 24 inches of the property line. The staircase to this particular property encroaches approximately half of a foot and remains about 4.5 feet away from the property line. Staff is recommending approval of the plans.
Would you like to present?
Greg Masick, 56 Edwards Village Boulevard with TAP Associates. I don't have anything to present. This is just one of our first of many to come. So.
Well, let's see if anybody in the audience has any questions. We'll open public comment first this time. Name and address, please.
Sure, Christian Caslin, P.O. Box 1165, Minturn, Colorado. I am the Christensen's attorney. A little bit of history, I negotiated this deal on behalf of the Christensens back in, I want to say 2017, we started this negotiation. The Christensens had come down and relocated from Gilman at the time and settled into the south portion of Minturn. As they were getting older and property values obviously went way through the roof, they thought it was advantageous to maybe portion off a portion of their land to allow for a little bit more development in the south area of Minturn. So I and the current builder's attorney negotiated this deal whereby they would sell their entire property, which you can see on the final plat. It was a rather large piece of property, includes the entire Belden development that you see and you're considering. In consideration for that, they were reserved off a portion of their old land, which at the time was a old mining cabin on the Highway 24. It was a 1201 Main and their modest house right behind it. The developer at that time put them up in a place in Edwards while he constructed their home, and COVID hit, and you guys know about the water taps and what happened down there, and now here we are finally seeing some development on that other portion of land. And I'm not here to specifically address the merits of this one lot, although it happens to be one that directly borders their lot. They are lot 17, which is the top northeast corner of the plat. You know, it's very obvious. It's the only existing structure. It consists of a very nice single-family home with an attached caretaker unit, which they have always planned to have either their children come or if they do need a caretaker in the future. My purpose of being here tonight is to put you guys on notice that we're starting to see these new development plans come through, but we still have quite a few things that we need to get done with the developer on the original deal that we negotiated in 2018. A couple examples of that is the Christensens finally last week received a deed to their property after all this time. The deed spelled their name wrong. It doesn't have the right address on it. I didn't get to take a look at it. I sent an email to the developer's attorney, one requesting the deed, which he got on pretty quick. And then when I saw the deed, it was already recorded, I noticed a bunch of mistakes. So I sent him an email and also CC'd Allison on that, indicating what corrections I'd like to see. There are very clear agreements in place with the developer in terms of direct highway access off of Highway 24 and not off of an internal subdivision road. There are agreements in writing regarding that lot 17 is not part of any HOA in this development whatsoever. The Christensens are old school. They want to paint the Broncos on their roof, and they might do that one day. But it's not to be part of the HOA. It has direct access off of Highway 24. They like to maintain the original address that they had. And also, like I said, some technical details on the deed. And there was a punch list of items that they requested from the builder that just still haven't been completed. I spoke with the builder on this, Brian. He's very easy to work with. He addressed the broken window that they had a couple weeks ago. They had the window on site, they just didn't have anyone to put it in. So we are working towards those more nuts and bolts kind of things, but I wanted to put you guys on notice of some larger issues like access and deed issues, like ownership issues. So that's all I'm here to do is I took a look at your the site plans for these. You guys approved the development, so I just want to make sure that going forward that you take care of the original people that sold them this land and that the intention of the developer actually gets put to test. And we're so close to easily finishing this up with the Christensens. They brought me back now, 6-7 years later, to make sure that I get it done for them. And I will, because I've known them forever. and they deserve it. So I just ask that you keep in mind the commitment that the developer made to the original owners of this land. And if you have any questions, please let me know.
May I request that you, on a basis ongoing,
Sure.
communicate with Scott to
Be
make
glad
sure he knows everything?
Oh,
If
you,
you haven't
you read my
already.
mind. I was just gonna say, Christian, can you please contact me offline and we'll discuss?
Absolutely, I
Okay.
really appreciate that.
And I have a question, Christian.
Sure.
You don't have any issues with what we don't have any issues currently with this, what we're looking at tonight.
Absolutely not.
Hopefully you get the rest of the stuff sorted out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I was gonna ask that same thing.
Thought we were done.
Okay, nobody else in the audience? Is anybody else online?
Anyone else online?
Okay, we'll close public comment and start with Daryl this time. Do you have any questions? Michael?
I don't have any questions.
I do not on what is being presented
I
tonight.
don't.
You do not either, so may I have a motion, please?
I make a motion to approve the final plan review for new single-family residence on 0013 Belden Way.
May I have a second?
I second.
Motion by Eric, second by Michael. All in favor? Oh, roll call vote. We better do roll call on this.
Eric, aye.
Lynn, aye.
Michael, aye.
You're all right.
Thank you. Next, 0015 Belden Way, new single-family residence. Is there any questions on that?
That's not the same address we should stick.
No, we did 0013.
Okay, alright.
Almost.
I have no questions.
I have no public comment.
Just for the record, I want to say that this is pretty much identical to the last one. The only difference really is that this stairway encroaches 1.5 feet into the side setback instead of 1/2 foot, and so therefore it is 3.5 feet away from the property line,
Just a little closer.
just a little closer.
And it's just a stairway and it's part of the agreement we had anyway, right?
And
Okay.
open to public comment, I assume nobody out there wants to speak. So shall we close public comment, or do we need to take presentation? No, nothing from the applicant? We'll close public comment and come to,
I make a motion to approve the final plan review for 0015 Belden Way.
may I have a second?
I'll second.
Motion by Michael, second by Daryl. Roll call vote, please.
Eric, aye.
Lynn, aye.
Michael, aye.
Carol, aye.
Thank you. Glad to see it's, getting it cleared up. Thank you so much. Okay,
Take care of the gun finish.
yeah, the one who helped make it all happen.
You wait forever for a second.
Discussion and direction items. I have a little something I'd like to say. I wrote it down so I don't ramble.
It's quite a list.
I have to admit that I was a bit frustrated with, is it 996?
Yes.
Yes. By the way these changes were handled by the applicant. It would have been better had they been brought to planning prior to them being done. As it is, the proper process is still being carried out, costing everybody more time and more money probably. I am a firm believer that codes help processes be more fair for everybody in the town, and that it is why we have them. I would like to address this situation in the near future so as not to allow this incident to set a precedent for the future and for other people thinking they can just make these changes and it'll all be okay. We don't want that. We want to make it easy, but we don't want that to happen. Therefore, I'm asking Madison and Scott if you could please check out our current code to see if there's anything in it that addresses possible repercussions. If not, what can we do to discourage this from happening again? Changes should at least come before planning staff prior to be acted upon. Thank you much.
I agree, Lynn. But it sounds like that's much more work on staff.
They didn't follow the process.
They didn't follow the
They
process.
didn't follow the
And
process.
Scott was clear.
And that process makes you build a house correctly, you build a house correctly, me and Eric build a house correctly. You can't,
It's pretty clear, I
It
think we
needs to
made
be
it
for
clear
everybody.
as what changes, you have to
Yeah.
notify the town, and if you don't notify them, I don't think you wanna come up in front of us again, same problem on the next bill. I think that what Lynn is saying is good, we think about how we can address it, and next time it happens, we just red tag them. And they have to sort it out,
They effectively were red tagged.
I believe it.
You know, there was a frank discussion that was had with Tom Sullivan after we went out there, I think within an hour of going out there of, hey, I don't know what's going on, but we've got a lot of changes and we were never notified. So there was that. If I'm not mistaken, we currently probably have the ability to charge double for whatever DRB application they have to file. Not a big hit to anyone's wallet. So stopping the project was a hit to them. We worked with Tom and the owners. The owners wanted to be able to occupy the house for Labor Day weekend and I think a week following that. We gave them exactly this many days to occupy their house. And then they were going to go back to New York and Tom was going to finish the house. And I said, you can do that, but you're not getting past go until we get an application with all the changes and you get me a survey and all these things. So there was that, but that was a lot of work on our part.
On your guys' part.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that, Darryl, that's because you gotta understand, I believe, if you're an architect and you're building you're working on multiple things in the town of Minturn, you're well aware of the process that we currently have, and this time it got sorted out. But like Lynn said, we can look into potential fines and penalties or whatever we wanna think of in the future.
Mhm.
It'd be one thing if it was just mom and pop building their house and they didn't know. But the encroachment agreement for the patio pavers, for example, was from 2022.
Okay.
So,
It was a long project. I think what I was trying to allude to, which was kind of cryptic, I think Michael was involved. And then he may not have been involved as much as he was previously. And another architect from New York was involved, and she was an interior architect who was making all the changes to windows. And he might not have been aware of that as the architect of record.
I think we made our point pretty, I think
Yeah.
he understands our point.
Yeah, I think there was different people pulling strings on that one.
Yeah, it was a long process down there, I think.
Yeah.
How often does this happen?
Not,
Things change
Yeah.
on almost every project. Windows get a little bit bigger, a little bit smaller, they shift left or right or up or down. Maybe the stone belts that a lot of people have on the bottom of their buildings, maybe that got smaller or a little bit bigger. And it's never been that big a deal. We take note of the changes and kind of move on from there. But changes of this magnitude,
Yeah.
that was shocking, honestly. And so at that point, we were just like, this absolutely has to go back to planning commission.
Yeah, no, I agree with what you guys did. Yeah, that was a whole, that's almost changing the whole outside of the building. So that was,
This started 7 years ago too, right?
They got approval in 2021.
Oh, 2021, okay.
So yeah.
That was 2006.
but the easement was worked with Eagle River Water and Sanitation in 22 and it was signed.
Right.
And that's when things started probably changing more. We could have been informed soon.
It's there's definitely discretion involved because our guidelines are not prescriptive, right? The fact that you approve a set of plans we try to honor that when we go out and we see even minor changes, and they either go through a staff approval process if they're truly minor, and we've done a few of those, or this instance, right?
And you update it, so it works.
Yeah, it
You
works.
know?
Yeah. And so some things that we might want to, if we don't already do them, when we write a letter of approval for a new house, we have conditions attached to that. If we don't have any conditions, we have at least one condition too. Any material representations made by the applicant during the public review process are conditions of approval. Things that they say up here like, oh yeah, we'll do that. Okay, that's a condition of approval. Or we could also add, a caveat on every letter that we send to them saying your building's been approved, congratulations. Any changes to your approved design require a design review application. So you put them on notice.
We started doing that with the Minter North houses.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. And then I guess we can try to work with John, our building inspector, to give us a little bit more heads up if he is doing a framing inspection. I don't know if we start going on those. I tend to not want to
He's
do
got his
that.
hands pretty full just doing his inspections. I
Yeah.
think we raised the penalty. Like you said, because I remember us talking about changes with Intern North, because we've discussed it. You're like, oh, we'll make minor changes, and just like with your signs and all that stuff.
Yep.
It's in the back of our packet. Awesome, we're all aware of it, and then, obviously things got blindsided as well, and it's clear, and whatever we did with Minturn North, maybe through our process of moving forward as we talk more, when we're talking about that process,
Yeah.
maybe we do that with everybody, or maybe we have paying an extra building permit, like you said. It's not really a penalty.
You double the fee, so it'd be
400 instead of 200.
I mean, $1,500,
At least it covers
$3,000.
the extra.
$3,000. $3,000. You start paying attention.
Yeah. What you doing?
Dream big, Michael.
Couple hundred.
I have one other thing I wanted to bring up. I almost brought it up to Michael, but in the last week, there was a thing on television
Sorry.
about a new glass that has been developed.
Yes.
And I would like us to start thinking about, we're all about wildlife here. Well, the bird population has dropped like 40% out here. And this glass has been developed so that it does not reflect. And when him talking about 11-foot sliding glass doors, or whatever it was, I was thinking, how often are they gonna get up in the morning facing east when the birds rise, flying into that? So it's just something that in the future, maybe we can investigate. I don't know if we need to ask an architect, a glass person about it, so we can find out more. Maybe it's on the internet, we can get some information on it. And maybe on certain portions of homes like that, transom windows, maybe not so much, but 11-foot glass, maybe we can.
There's products that you don't even notice it. The human eye doesn't even notice it. And it can be either embedded in the glass or on the surface of the glass. So one way is a lot cheaper than the other. But the way birds see it, they see it as a wall. And it's quite obvious to them. But it's not obvious to the human eye,
That's cool.
which is, you don't even see a difference.
Do you know if there's a severe cost?
There is a little bit more of a cost right now, but it's not severe.
Okay.
If they can do entire skyscrapers with them, I don't think it's that big of a cost.
If they do skyscrapers with them, then it's definitely been tested.
Yeah.
Because the cost of doing a skyscraper, you don't want to have to go back and replace the windows.
I forget which museum out in New York, an art museum, the
Did it?
entire thing was all glass,
Yeah.
and they used that for it.
Cool.
But I don't know the product name or anything.
If there's a certain product that is a great advance in technology, we can recommend that. Hey,
Yeah, we can't request
Just
it,
so
but
you
we can
know.
start recommending it.
Recommend.
Because that was the big, what was it, an 8-foot door, a 9-foot door, to an 11-foot door, that's a big piece of glass. Right by the river where all the trees are on the east side.
It takes 4 months to order that door before you get it. Doors and windows, I'm on a project just replacing a window. November, one window.
Oh, yeah.
1 5-foot window.
Okay, anybody else have anything under discussion, direction? No? Staff reports, planning department update?
There's nothing in your packet, but that's one question I have for you. Michelle has been doing a great job of producing a one-pager or a two-page update for council on all the things that she's working on. She has asked me to start doing that for you. Do you think that would be helpful to have that in writing? A lot of times I
We love that,
I
Scott.
love that.
Wow, so thoughtful.
Makes us feel just as appreciated.
Well, you are appreciated. But as I told Michelle, I'm not sure I always have anything to share. Like I don't.
Like, that's going on my bill.
Well,
If you have something to say, we like updates.
I always give you an update in person, and I could try to think of things to update you on in writing if that's more helpful. So that's a question for you, and you don't have to answer it tonight, but
We did.
that's a yes? Okay.
Yeah.
You know, I love this because now we know it's going to be on the next council meeting. And maybe somebody here who wants to go see what's going on with the Bellum Bridge. Same as with Chang 3. That's not something everybody always looks at, but if we're made aware of it here in our meeting,
Well, as well as like the Christian Shoe gentleman is just trying to get his stuff finalized now. You know, if there's any information that you think is relevant, you know, that would be
Yes.
something we'd like to hear about.
Well, yes, so we're gonna have to,
Fig-
we're gonna have to balance, like if there was something,
I know what you're saying.
that was all,
Yeah.
that was all news to me. That would
Wasn't
just
to me.
go, that would go in the packet as part of Belden Place or something, if it was germane information, that would, right?
If they have a legal dispute against Belden Place personally, that's, of course, we want the best for them, but that's, we stay out of that.
This, a planning director update would be, what's the latest on midterm forward code update? What are, I don't know where to draw the line between giving you a heads up on things that, like, applications that we haven't received yet, but might be coming your way. I don't necessarily want to get into that. That's where I've struggled with this request from Michelle to put stuff in writing, but I'll take a stab at it and see if it works, you know.
You know,
well, and if anybody here comes up with ideas of what they would like to know about, since obviously we cannot know about
we want to know.
these until we get the applications, and then we really can't discuss it. But if there's anything else you're thinking of that we do, that might help Scott figure that out.
Just
let me
change,
know.
probably most, I understand what you're saying, you tell us all the time anyway, when we're coming to talk about moving the code and this and that, you always tell us that that's coming. You know, I think you would have liked to know as well. But basically, the changes like to plans, to stuff that we approved, you do it anyway, but we love those little things in our packet, just because we're aware of it.
Mhm.
You know,
Okay.
that way we know, yeah, they changed it, and it's okay, perfect, they told us. And then 3 years later, we don't find out they changed it.
This might be a little more high level, just things that I or we are working on, and the status of those. I'm been taking part in a regional housing group that's looking at a regional housing authority. I've been doing that for 4 months, so I can provide updates on what we're talking about in that group and what the other towns are talking about and when we might have something to show for that.
What does a regional housing authority do?
It takes money from all the different towns and puts it into a big pot, kind of like the Regional Transportation Authority that was just formed, and then starts putting it towards different housing initiatives. Those are the things that
So
we're,
that takes money away from the town for them to
it would be
use?
an extra, just like the Regional Transit
Our
Authority,
taxes don't go up to support it.
it would be a tax that shows up somehow on sales tax or however. Each town would have to adopt that and buy into it, basically.
Yeah, some towns might just take it out of the budget.
Some towns are loaded. We need a new roof on this building.
Yeah,
Yeah.
We need new windows.
this would be something that every,
We need a new water treatment plant.
We got a lot of things we need.
Regional Housing
We need
Authority
the
money
green
doesn't
tape.
help.
let's not get over our skis here.
Yes, thank you.
What we've done as a group, I'll provide the update now. So the town of Avon and Eagle County are kind of leading the charge on this. The town of Avon's emerging as a leader in housing in our valley. They are not messing around. They're not wasting any time. They're doing things with their own money. They're updating their codes to require different, incentives for developers to do housing. They took it upon themselves with Eagle County to organize kind of an exploratory group or effort. What we've done in the last 3 or 4 months, the towns and the county paid for 2 different consultants, Economic Planning Systems, who we've used before in our comp plan, and RRC. Those are 2 groups that do market studies and housing studies all over the state and the region. They have been plowing through information from every town and metro districts, the Beaver Creek Metro District, Edwards Metro District, any major entity that has information that they could use to understand the existing housing picture in our county. So they've compiled all that information. We spent time getting them our information. How many units have we built since 2015? How many of those are actually affordable? What's our potential build out in the future? How many projects do we have going through right now? So they're taking all of that, analyzing that data. We're about to go back out to the communities in October and November and start reporting out what those initial findings are. From there, we will kind of go back to internal meetings and starting to formulate different ideas around what a regional housing authority might look like based on the data we've collected on who has what and who has what budgets to do different things. We will then go forward to the towns and make recommendations on how that might work and how it could be equitable amongst all the different towns. And again, that's for the towns to figure out. Minturn, Vail, who wants to go down that road, who doesn't. And so it's not going to be mandatory. It's just like, here's what we know. Each town has its own destiny to make. So
I think that Avon wishes, I was shocked that Avon's construction use tax wasn't automatic. Because I only done one shop at Avon, like 25 years I did the pet center. I had to show proof that I paid taxes and snap. Apparently it's going to the election, to the people, because it got turned down before. And somebody must have, I would have thought it could have been approved to council or something, but somehow it went to election and it failed last time and it's coming back up. But there's substantial, massive quantities of building. It's they got a lot of space left over there.
Yeah.
And that I would think that it would, they'd be, they have, we like to keep Minturn. We like our nice small little town. We don't have much, but we're most of us are happy, but there's big money, they have it's, just like in general. Look at what Costco did for gypsum. We do have one space, one big space down there.
Way at the front door, yeah.
We have one big space down there.
And we also have a tremendous amount of future building about to happen, so.
Our road's gonna be full, just with,
Yes.
well, what's current, as soon as this construction ends, by the way, nobody wanted to let me cross the crosswalk. Can't even cross it. I'm like, zoom, zoom, zoom. I'm like, standing here.
yeah,
It's unbelievable.
Lynn, something, talked about Avon, here in Avon, being thrown out here. You know the new Marriott building that just got built over by Maverick?
Yep.
They, and I've been on this mitigation thing, around the buildings, the combustible materials versus non-combustible. Well, they had, the Marriott had done just that, the shredded bark around the whole thing.
Mm.
Avon said, no, you can't do that. They had to scrape the whole thing up and put gravel around it.
I heard about that from the Avon town staff.
And they have, I guess they have something in there. There was a rule and the Marriott didn't go by it.
Okay.
So it wasn't, oh, you need to do this. It was a rule.
Okay.
It was probably part of the approved plans that
Yeah.
they didn't find out till the final CO.
It was in their regulations.
What
It was probably in their regulations.
it now is, yeah, for sure.
Alrighty.
Just a couple other things. Midterm forward. So as I mentioned, we continue to work on Article 5. That's the article that we presented to you. We're still taking your suggestions, going back to that meeting and making revisions. Richard and Mike, our attorneys, are looking at it. Jeff Spinell is looking at it. Our goal is to bring a clean version back to you with a red line that shows the changes that we've made since you last looked at it at the October 9th meeting. We're also trying to put in front of you a draft of our new preliminary environmental assessment and environmental impact report section. So that now has its own article. That'll be the first time you're looking at that. What else am I forgetting? I think those are the two. Yeah. While we're working on those two things, I have been working on the original language for all the different zone districts, their purpose statement and objectives, and comparing that and melding that with the purpose and intent statements from the community plan. So they're different. So if our goal was to maybe transfer from character areas to zone districts, we had plenty of meetings over the winter that really tried to focus on each neighborhood. And before we throw the baby out with the bathwater, as far as character areas, there's some good language in there that describes each of the different character areas. How do we bring some of that forward with any new language or any new zone district? That's what I've been working on. So Matt and I, Madison, can start putting that language together in a coherent manner so you and the community understand here's what the purpose of this zone district was, here's what the new purpose is. Same thing with mapping and showing where people's property lie relative to any changes in zone districts. So I'm trying really hard to get to a point where we have something to share with you and the public so we can get to the open house meetings or whatever, however we're going to handle making sure people understand any changes to zoning. I'd like to get to that in the next month and a half before the holidays. We've got quite a bit of pressure on us to get this done. I think Michelle has an expectation from council that this is going to get done by the end of the year. I don't see that happening. But we're trying as hard as we can to start moving these things along and build in a public process around the zone district piece and the allowable uses and all those things, because that really is super important. So
What was that last thing that we did? Not the community plan. It was like a survey or something, the last one. Do you know what I'm talking about?
The public survey?
Yeah, the community survey.
I don't know
well,
if it's
when we were looking at the neighborhoods and
The open house?
Yeah, we're looking at the neighborhood.
No, we know the neighborhoods, I remember all that, but there was another survey our last survey after the community plan. What was that one called?
We did do a community survey this year.
Yeah, I think that, I don't know if that's what I'm talking about, but yeah, I think that,
Where are you going with it? What did you
I thought
see?
that one, I think that from the community plan to the whatever, I think that we know that some things have changed from the community plan, and there was other input that people had put in on the latest one that was very, very good input, and I think that, you know, we've been back and forth kicking around, and I think, like you said, that next thing to work into is a big thing. And as far as getting through that, if we get through that this year, you should call that a plus, Scott.
I do.
Finishing the whole thing this year, I don't have to talk to
I
Michelle.
hate to see it rushed and not be done properly.
Yes.
And when you think of, you're talking about growth in this town with the regional housing, whatever. I mean, we already have 250, 150, 40, or 42, 41, something like that, 39, 120. So 250 and 220, or 150, I'm sorry.
It's
400.
huge.
It's huge.
It's
That's half the size of the town at least.
I think businesses
And
should do
until
better.
that gets in and we say how we adjust with traffic and we adjust with roads, I mean, what really worries me too is fire. And I don't see where we have that final plan being presented to us that says, okay, from this point on, you go north, you go south, you go south, and what if north is closed? You know, how does it work? I mean, with this one road increasing more than another 450 to 500, to me seems great until we see how it works. And we've got all that. And it takes time.
I don't anticipate, I've said this many times, I really don't anticipate a tremendous amount of change between our existing zone districts and our new zone districts. I really don't. We're not in any shape or form, the community plan guidance didn't suggest that we were gonna like triple the density in a residential zone district. But that really will come down to how we treat things like duplexes and accessory dwelling units in the table of allowed uses and things like that, and mixed use districts and how we treat that. You know, the community plan recommended 3 different mixed use districts. We're not so sure we need 3 different mixed use zone districts. So we've been talking about that internally. So we'll see how that shakes out and what we present to you, but.
I have something for you, Scott.
If it has anything to do with mixed-use zone districts, no.
No, it doesn't actually. I have faith. I have faith. I have faith. I think we've repeated ourselves 1,000 times. No, it has to do because, you know, okay, a lot of times you'll hear me be like, we need to require more parking, we need to require more parking, we need to require more parking. And then the funny thing is myself who like the Ballards, you know, I like people to stop for the crosswalks. You know, I mean, it makes it easier. My kid's 16, he's got to pull out, you know. But apparently I was roughing it in Spain. But I was thinking about you.
I'm sure you were.
My wine. No, but apparently with the Ballards, there was such a big, I heard the room was full. People were upset about losing parking on Main Street.
It's a 3-hour discussion that night.
So the last thing we need to do is reduce parking, moving, it's just a thought. Everybody has their own opinion when we get to that. Moving forward, something to think about as to how they all had to fit there. And if we make less requirements, there's more there, but.
We'll get there, but that's my update on Minturn Forward. We are spending a lot of time going through those and making revisions, and it takes time. Because, and the good part of that is that we're looking at the draft that Matt put together and you've reviewed, and we're going, that actually isn't worded correctly, or that's really not gonna work, and we're looking at just everything from our timeframes when someone submits, how many days we have to review it, how many days they have to make revisions, like all the things that we should be looking at, we're taking our time to make sure that's correct.
People notifying you of changes.
That too.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Alrighty.
we'll
Thank you
keep
for
plugging
your-
away.
Everybody read the manager's report? Is there anything?
Park and the bridge. I read it.
The park and the bridge were the two important.
I like the kids picturing that.
Mhm.
The kids drawing in there.
Yeah.
Oh.
Drawings.
Beer Go-Go. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love it.
Anything else? Planning commission comments? That's usually a more general friendly thing. Is there anything anybody has to say? Halloween's coming up.
Halloween is booming for Minter.
Mhm.
Got the best Halloween. Well, Eagles get them around for our money, but
Yeah, Eagles are,
you know,
in Miller Ranch.
yeah. We're still winning
Yeah, well, I like how the houses.
per capita.
It's on a Wednesday this year, the 5th Wednesday of the month.
Well, at least it's the 5th Wednesday. It won't have to affect any meetings for
Yes.
anybody.
We'd have to cancel it, that'd be.
Right?
Is that when the kids are gonna trick or treat this year? It's gonna be on Wednesday?
We always do it on the 30th.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
So
Wednesday.
this year, the 30th, she's saying it's a Wednesday, but there's 5 Wednesdays in October, so it won't affect council, it won't affect P and Z.
If the school wants to do something during Halloween or during that Wednesday, do they have to go through the process of they want to put up a tent, BSSA or something like that in a certain area?
Yes, technically, you would either, depending on what you're wanting to do or what the school is wanting to do, you'd either get a special event license through Cindy or you'd get a temporary use permit through me.
Okay.
So, yeah, it just kind of comes down to what you're wanting to do.
Just come on in.
Both of those things are staff approved. So, I mean, I would get it to us sooner rather than later, but, you know, a week.
Okay,
Okay.
next meeting, October, the 2 meetings in October, October 9th and October 23rd. Does anybody have any issues? I will be here.
I will be here.
I will be here.
Yep, same here, no problem.
Okay, so we know we are here, we just need to check with Jeff and Amanda.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. May I have a motion to close the meeting?
I make a motion to close tonight's meeting.
May I have a second?
I'll second.
Motion by Michael, second by Darrell, all in favor?
Aye.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Oh, God.
Thank you.